Morning, good morning.
Hello.
That's Brigitte. She's awesome. Just in our event liaison's position, just started. We're excited to have her around.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
You guys look great. You sitting next to somebody that looks really good? Like, check it out. Just,
Easy. You don't know who they're sitting next to.
I'm not saying give them your number. I'm just saying you're sitting next to somebody that looks good. Although you never know.
Hey, Brigitte mentioned the Holy Spirit seminar. Just out of curiosity, how many people in this room have been to one of the previous Holy Spirit seminars where Stefan was there? Okay. Well, they're our best advertisement. Those people that raise their hand can tell you how great it is, and I encourage you to ask one of them what that's like. So that's on the calendar for February 17th and 18th. I just highly encourage you to come be a part of that.
Hey, we're in a series. We just started it last week. It's a series we call commUNION. Real relationships in an abstract world, we call it. It's things have gotten fuzzy around the edges a lot in our world, and I don't think that's new. I think it just goes in cycles. And relationships are not new. People have been doing relationships for thousands of years. The thing is that was then and this is now, and I live here. Everybody on the planet, unless you've somehow found or purchased your own deserted island or your man cave that you never have to come out of, everybody on the planet has to relate to other people. Most people on the planet relate to a number of different people, or they actually live with people that they relate to. Maybe that's called marriage and family. But the fact is that relationships are part of how God formed His universe, how He shaped us. He made us for relationships. Everything we said last week, in week one, everything God does, He does through relationships. Whether that's just you and a friend, you and a spouse, you and a family member, you and a coworker, you and a teammate, everybody has to relate to everybody. And half the planet is the opposite sex. Just keep that in mind.
They are. And the question is then, if He created them, then wouldn't He be the one to go back to ask, how do you do this? How is this supposed to work? In all the relationship troubles that we have in the world, how do we get this right? Where does your word apply to this place where we live and breathe, right here, in relating to one another? And when we get it wrong, how do we bring it back? When it's gone so far off the rails that it feels like, and we've all felt that in one relationship or another, there's been some time where we're like, I had a friend, I lost a friend, right? Or I had a colleague and I lost a colleague, or I had a spouse and I lost a spouse. It hits us different places, but we get these places where we're like, okay, how do I come back from this?
Anybody follow the James Webb Telescope? It was launched a year ago in December, so a year ago it's been out, and it's been taking photographs of the deepest parts of space that man has never seen before. I was looking at some of those photos and stuff like that, and I was just blown away thinking, is it just me, or do you ever realize, man, there's a lot that I don't know about? Man, it's all going on out there and stays together somehow. Let's just for the sake of the conversation this morning as we start, just imagine if you're here and the Bible's not your thing, you're checking out the church or checking out Christianity to see if it's valid or whatever. And through the lens, I'd like you just to think of this idea that there's a lot of stuff everywhere. And where did it come from? And more importantly, who maintains it? How is it maintained? You look at the macro of the universe, its size that the telescope is discovering, and then you look at the micro of just the intricate details, the fine-tuning, if you will. Now, if there is no God, that's another conversation. I'd love to hear the explanation. But just imagine that God framed His universe with laws, with principles, with boundaries, with guardrails, if you will. And based on those laws, everything works and continues to work. Now, there's some anomalies, there's different things that are unexplainable, but for the most part, it just works, and it keeps working until the Creator chooses to do otherwise. But what's behind that?
We've kind of said that before in one version or another, that if the God's universe has a grain to it, it has a direction, and if you run your hand against the grain, you get splinters. Like a cat, they have a direction they like to be pet. You go the other way, you're going to get scratched. And this world that God made, not just the physical world, the universe, the stars, those are amazing and beautiful, but He made us, and He made us for relationship. This isn't a mistake. The male-female thing is not a mistake. It's made into our design. And so how do we how do we do this right? What if we try to go against that? We'll get splinters, but if we go with it, there's a blessing that comes with it. We talk about this sometimes in the form of the Old Testament. What you see is the law. Is this truth? That's our sermon title today, is Grace and Truth. The law is truth. It said, this is the law. This is how to live in this universe. And if you live by these laws, you will prosper. Your culture will prosper. If you decide to go against these laws, then you will not. And the problem with that is we weren't very good at it. Not that we didn't know it, it's just that we weren't terribly good at it.
You think about, truth being a guardrail, right? I mean, the guardrail's there not to curse me, but to protect me, but to bless me. And if I disregard or violate the guardrail, I'm going over the cliff. And that's how I would describe sometimes relationship disasters. Man, that thing went over the cliff. It went past the guardrail, right? But the guardrail wasn't the issue. The issue was the way I was driving. Can we pause for just a second? Father, we just pray that you would speak to us here. We need you to understand this. We can talk, but we need you. And so we just ask you to open our understanding here. In my life and life around us, life in our planet, life between nations, life between families, ethnic groups, help us to see what you have designed and how it's designed to work. Yeah, in Jesus' name. You read the Old Testament, there's a lot of stuff in there. You're like, what in the world are they talking about? I understand that. There's a part in the book of Deuteronomy, which is like the second telling of the law. It's after the Ten Commandments, and God goes back over the material again and with a new generation. And he says these words. He says, listen, he sets before them these two options. This is the God of the universe who framed his universe, the macro, but he's also now speaking to the micro. These are people, real people, little people in time and space. And that was then, and this is now, but this is what he says. He said, listen, if you fully obey the Lord your God and carefully follow all his commands I give you today, then the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations on the earth. Now again, he's picking it. Now the backstory is God is developing a people that he can make himself known to that would in turn be a blessing to all the earth. So he said, listen, he said, if you just be careful to obey, stay within the guardrails, then he said, all these blessings will come on you and accompany you if you obey the Lord your God. So he ties prosperity, he ties happiness, he ties joy to this idea of staying within the boundaries of obedience.
And there's another side to that. On the other side of that is, if you don't, this is what that road looks like. If you think of them as two roads, he's saying, this road leads there. You can call that prosperity and abundance. And please take that away from the idea of just money and finances that the church talks a lot about. I'm talking about real life, abundant life. He says that road leads to abundant life. That road, you don't want to go down that road. That's a bad road. This is what he says, the same chapter. However, if you do not obey the Lord your God and do not carefully follow all his commands and decrees I'm giving you today, all these curses will come on you and overtake you. He wanted to make it so obvious that he actually had Moses point to two different mountains, and he said, that's the cursed mountain, that's the blessing mountain. Every time you lift your eyes, and you couldn't help but see them where they lived, every time you lift your eyes, you're going to see those two. And remember, that one says, oh yeah, if we obey the Lord, then our life is going to be good. If we disobey the Lord, I don't want to go down that road.
And you might be like, well, why should I obey him? And that's a great question, and why should I listen? That's maybe a larger subject than we can take on here this morning. But what you find is that people are fickle, myself included, and they would go up and down, they would go in and out with their faithfulness to this God who was leading them. And so much so that it got so bad that in the book of Leviticus, which again is a book filled with all kinds of stuff, but there's a place in Leviticus where God says, it can get so bad that the land will spit you out. In fact, they use the word vomit. They said your relationships can get so corrupted that it literally, the land can't sustain you. It will vomit you out. That's how bad things can get. So there's this sense of, boy, if that's true, then my actions really really play a part in this. My decisions play a part in this. The history, if you read the Old Testament, it's a bunch of different stories, but what you find is God's people would be in, and then they'd be out, and then they'd be in, and then they'd be out, and God was always having to rescue and redeem, and they were always in trouble, and then they come back, they were prosperous. In the middle of it, there's a prophet by the name of Amos. He says this, in the middle of this, calling them back, you guys, one more time, if you'll obey, things are going to go great. If you don't obey, and Amos says these words. He said, can two walk together unless they agree? Can two people go together unless they agree? You think about that. Can we go together unless we agree? That is such a profound question, right? Because where is the God that we're talking about, or the God we read about, or the God I believe in? Where is he taking us? Well, here's where he's taking us. Here's what it says in Revelation. I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, look, this is the end of time. This is after we're all gone. God's dwelling place is now among his people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them, and he is their God. Folks, that is the end that God is taking his people to, his church to, his believers to. You think about that in dating. You know, I know we use the term, we were joking how old we are, like, hey, we're going together. Remember that? No, you got to be old, I guess, right?
That's what we said in high school. Will you go with me? I don't know what they say now. Don't ask me. I don't want to go. That's the idea. Like, we have to have an agreement. Like, we're going the same direction. Our lives are going the same direction. We've agreed on the destination. And that's why marriage is the ultimate picture of this that we have in our frame. This is it. We've both agreed. Their agreement needed to first be, okay, I agree with God. His ways are the way I want to live. I want to agree with his ways. I want to go that road. And then you find someone else in life who says, I want to go that road. That's the direction I'm going. That's the direction I'm going. Maybe we can go together. Maybe you and I can go the God direction together. We've both agreed that he's the Lord of our life, so why don't we do this together? And then there's a commitment that goes around that. And so destination is one thing. A marriage, I was just at a wedding yesterday. It was beautiful. It was so great. They were young and did not know what was ahead of them, and we're all smiling. Like, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It'll be great.
Why are you laughing so hard? What could go wrong?
Yeah. It's beautiful. I love it. I mean, I really do. It's gorgeous. But the reason why we make them say certain things is because we know, like, yeah, right now, it feels great. It feels really great. Like, we've decided that's our destination. We're going together. Look, we're all dressed up for it. And then we make them say, put this in the vows. Richer or poorer, sickness and health, forsaking all others, until death do us part. You're like, man, why'd you have to bring death into this?
Yeah.
Why'd you have to bring poverty into this and sickness into this? Well, because along the way, if that's your destination, you're going to go through some of those valleys. And you have to decide, not only is that our destination, but nothing will hinder us from getting there. No matter what, we're doing this together.
You know what they're agreeing to? Here's a concept, a mission statement, a vision statement. That's not a Christian idea. The business world operates on that. You know what's coming in right over here, you guys? Chick-fil-A. That woke you up. That got you back. Chick-fil-A.
Not on Sunday. You can't go on Sunday.
Not on Sunday. Oh, that's weird, isn't it? Like, hey. So, you think about it. Someone somewhere, wherever Atlanta, wherever they're from, wherever Chick-fil-A lives at corporate, they have a vision statement. And their vision is to sell chicken to the world.
It's a beautiful vision.
It's a beautiful vision. But... And we're not going to sell it on Sunday. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And so what they have done is they have literally, right over here by Costco and out in Kaiser, they are building a brick and mortar structure that real people are going to work inside and put on the hats or the uniforms. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to come into alignment with the mission statement. We're not here to sell hamburgers. We're not here to sell tacos. We could sell a lot of things, but we're selling chicken. And so in the context of that vision statement, they operate and they get rewarded for it, and people enjoy it. Not everybody loves it, but a lot of people do. It's not for everybody, right? But you hear what I'm saying is they've agreed on the destination. We are going together. We all have that uniform on. You know, sometimes it's good to ask yourself, do I have a mission statement? I mean, would you go into business? Would you pool your finances and create risk in your life, take on risk without saying, hey, you want to be my partner? Are we going together? Because listen, here's a tip. If they're not, you probably shouldn't put the money in the pot. Because it might not turn out. It might, by just the luck of the draw, you might get, oh yeah, me too. But oftentimes you find out because of circumstances or because of something that shifts, because of consequences of our choices, that mission statement gets forgotten. And then you look at each other and you go, well, why are we in this? And then you say things like, people will say things like, we fell out of love. We hear that a lot. We just don't love each other anymore. Or the feelings we once had are gone. But listen, since when I'm not anti-feeling. I hope I have some feelings. But listen, feelings are not or shouldn't be the determining factor of whether we're going to continue to go together. Because you and I know feelings are fickle, right? Feelings can come and go. But that point on the distance there, that thing way out there, that, hey, where are we going? That will hold you and I together through a lot of thick and a lot of thin. It's an anchor in a storm, so to speak.
So there's a beautiful picture then. Well, first of all, you read the Old Testament and you realize, it's not so easy. There's the law, there's what we're supposed to do. But like Bruce said, they'd get vomited out of the land because they couldn't keep the law. It's not enough just to know the right thing to do. Even Paul agrees with that in the New Testament. In the book of Romans, he says, the thing I want to do, I don't do. The thing I don't want to do, I do. The truth is brutal sometimes. Those guardrails really scuff up the car when you hit them. And it'd be easy to curse the guardrail and say, stupid guardrail, it scuffed up my car. Why do we even need guardrails? Let's get rid of these. We don't need. What are these laws for anyway? A wise man once said, before you tear down a fence, you ought to ask the old timers why it's up there. Why does that fence exist? What's it keeping out, or what's it keeping in? And I think we've got a place in our culture where why do we even need, these rules don't apply anymore. Not into the world that we live in today. We're telling you there's more than just a little ditch on the other side. It's a cliff, and we're going off of it. So Jesus comes in. This is the ultimate plan of God. Because he knew, here's the law. The law was grace in a way. It's better to know the right thing to do, even while I'm not able to do it, than to not know it at all. Not to be just completely lost. But now in comes Jesus, and it's grace connected to the law. The Son of God connected to. He's the Word made flesh. It says this in John 1:16-17. Out of his fullness we have all received grace in place of grace already given. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. Yeah, there was a grace to the law, but still an inability and no strength for us to get it done. And just like in relationships and marriage, have you ever been around people that are just I'm just a truth teller, I'll just tell you the truth, I just say it like it is. And there's zero love in them, there's zero grace in them, and you're you don't hang around with those people very long. I mean, you might show up once in a while to hear a little truth, but then you get battered pretty hard and you kind of walk away. Or others that are just they interview these people on the news a lot of times. They're they'd haul off Johnny because he killed 4 people and he was a terror to the area. And there's some grandma going, he's a good boy. They just love him. He's a good boy. Even though he was a bad boy.
He's a criminal.
But she has this grace. She has this love for him. And so you can't divorce the two, but the two have to be together. The truth and grace connected.
You ever been... You don't have to raise your hand. You ever been before a judge in a court situation? You're I'm here because I'm busted.
Because cameras tell the truth.
Yeah. And what you're hoping is, boy, I hope that person there, I hope that man or that woman sitting in those robes, I hope they have some feelings. Isn't that what you're hoping for? You're hoping for feelings, right? But the feelings, it's crazy. It's like two sides of an equal coin. There's both truth and grace, and one without the other just leaves you destitute. Here's what I say. This is kind of a Bruceism. I'm going to put it up there. A culture or an individual that has given up on the desire to obey God will have also lost the ability to feel God. You see, because truth leads me to God's purposes. And the feeling, if I hold on long enough, will come back. But if I'm moved by feelings alone, whatever those feelings are, emotions or reactions or family of origin stuff, that moves me. You understand what I mean by that? Like, oh, well, this is just the way I am. This is just the way I was raised. This is just the way I feel right now. Those things can really lead you astray, right? So truth becomes this, sometimes it is a hard fixed point where the judge says, you're going to pay $200 fine and hopefully learn to slow down. And it's not the end of my life, but it certainly is a marker, I hope, because I don't like to give away free money to the government if I don't have to, right? So Jesus comes on the scene and he tells a story that we're going to kind of finish with this to illustrate the point. You know how Jesus was? Sometimes he was very upfront, very obvious, and other times he told parables to make them think. Just stop and think. And a parable was a story. It's something that it's like a story that's thrown down next to a truth, and you kind of pick both things up and you connect the dots, if you will. And so Jesus someone asked him a question about forgiveness. Lord, how many times should I forgive my obnoxious brother? And Jesus says, well, you've heard it said 70 or 7. I say 70 times 7. So Jesus gives this outrageous answer, 70 times 7. Oh, come on. And then he follows up that statement with this story about two people. Remember the macro and the micro? Here comes the micro. Two people. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. What does this king have? He has a kingdom. It's the macro. It's the big picture. He has tons of servants. He has tons of land. He has tons of money. But he has a problem with one person, a servant. As he begins the settlement, he's sitting there in his office, the king with his CPA going over the balance sheet. A man who owed him 10,000 bags of gold was brought to him. Jesus is exaggerating for a reason. 10,000 bags of gold. Gosh, I'll never be able to pay that off. Good point. Since he was not able to pay, it's interesting too, he doesn't say how he got into debt. Was that bad behavior? Was that bad management? Did you do something dishonest? He just says the guy's in debt. Nameless guy. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered, here comes truth, here comes justice, here comes the law, that he and his wife were sold into slavery to repay the debt. That's how things work. That's how the law worked in that context in that day. That was not unusual.
And to be clear, he would have known this and agreed to it, or he would have never borrowed the money. Right? He knew the contract. Yep. They were agreed, yes, I'll borrow, you pay, or for whatever reason he got into debt. I know where this gets me, and I agree to this contract.
The servant hears the judgment. Oh my gosh, I'm not only going to lose my future, but the future of people I love. So my decisions are now dominoing into my wife and my children and my grandchildren. We're all slaves because of my recklessness. And so what does he do because he can't pay? He falls on his knees and he begs for mercy. He said, would you be patient with me? And I'll pay back everything. That's a foolish thing to say because he can't pay back everything. He knows it. The servant's master took pity on him. So there was something in the humility that said, okay. And he takes pity and he cancels the debt and he lets him go. That man, in that moment, just experienced, he was confronted. He was there because of truth. I have a debt I cannot pay. He walked in with truth and he walked out with grace. You're forgiven. Then anything you didn't earn a bit of it, you're free. You can go. Enjoy life. Go get your wife and your children. Rejoice. You have a new ticket.
He came before a throne of judgment and had zero excuses. So he just throws himself on the mercy of the court, or in this case of the king. He just throws himself on his mercy. And he finds actually, wow, that king is merciful. Because that's not a little thing to forgive. Even for a king, that's huge. You give up that much gold, and that's a good percentage of your life. So it costs him something, but he gives it. But then this man hasn't actually got it. It hasn't sunk in, because this is what happened next. When the same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, much, much, much smaller amount. And seizing him, he began to choke him, saying, Pay what you owe. So his fellow servant fell down and pleaded with him. Exactly the same. Says the same thing. Have patience with me, and I will repay you. Same phrase. Jesus knows what he's saying. He's describing us. Have patience with me, and I will repay you. He refused and went and put him in prison until he should pay the debt. When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed. They went and reported to their master all that had taken place. The world sees the hypocrisy. When we talk about the grace of God and the forgiveness of God and the mercy of God, and then we live graceless, merciless lives. And so his fellow servants said, this isn't right. This isn't the way you should live. So they do this. When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed. They went and reported to their master all that had taken place. Then his master summoned him and said to him, you wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. And should not you have had mercy on your fellow servant as I had mercy on you? And in anger his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all his debt. So also my heavenly Father, this is Jesus now speaking, he's breaking from the parable and he's speaking now directly to the crowd, directly to us. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart.
The Pope was in the Congo last week. Congo is about 5.5 million people in the whole country. He spoke to 1 million people at one time in a mass just last week. He was in Sudan just 2 days ago. Spoke to 100,000 people in the open air. You know what his message was? Would you forgive? Would you stop the cycle of violence? Would you stop the cycle of revenge? Would you forgive? That was his message. So here you have this macro level, this thing of a nation that's killing itself, a nation that's being eaten alive from the inside. And Jesus brings it right down to 3 people, just 3 people. You and I, and you and I. And obviously, the second guy, the mercy and the grace of the King didn't change him. I want to submit to you this morning that that's the acid test of whether your faith or my faith is even real. If I don't respond on a pure horizontal level with people that are next to me, the Apostle John would say, well, and how can we say we believe in a God who's invisible if I can't love my brother or my sister, forgive my brother or my sister? What you end up with is the ditch on both sides of the road. On the one side was the Pharisee, the legalist. The Pharisees started off well as scholars of the law, but they ended up using the law for their own selfish self-justification. The other side of the ditch is someone who totally ignores the law and ignores God, and they live for their self-indulgence, both of which create nothing but heartache sooner or later in the life of an individual or a family or a society.
This is true in every relationship, but let's just think about it in marriage for a minute. Being married to someone who is the Pharisee, who is the law, who is the only truth, it just kills you. You don't survive. No one hits that guardrail over and over again and survives. It just wrecks you. But on the other side is the person there are no rules, there are no law, we could do anything. This relationship really has no boundaries. I can go and you can go and it kills you. These two things they were made to be held together. The law exposes our debt. It shows us that the law, as that man stood before the king, the law was, you are in debt beyond all repair. And justification, though, says, I'm going to change this ledger book, and I'm going to make my balance your balance, and your balance my balance. I'm going to take your debt, and you get my riches. And we walk out free and clear. And it cost us literally nothing. It cost nothing for me. There's nothing I could have done. I was bags and bags and bags of gold in debt to sin and death. There was no recovering from this. And he just moved the ledger books around, and he gave me his riches for my debt.
What if my relationship issue with another individual, whoever it is, that I've been not totally honest with myself. I've just been blaming it on differences. Well, we're just different. Well, you're a man and I'm a woman, or you're this and I'm that. You just don't understand. What if that's actually a form of stubbornness? Stubbornness. Stubbornness is not spoken of very highly in Scripture. Stubbornness is really connected to ungodliness in the old. Now I get it. There's a synonym for stubbornness. It's called perseverance. Those are two separate things. Stubbornness is I'm dug in on what I believe, what I want, what I think. And if you don't, well then too bad. Perseverance, however, is a different thing. Perseverance is what Peterson talked about as a long obedience in the same direction. Please don't mix up the terms. My stubbornness in a relationship needs to be recognized, because that's what this servant was. He was stubborn. You owe me, you're going to pay me. And the king said, whoa, 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 wait a minute. What did you just experience at my hand? That's the sign of stubbornness that'll kill. He says, man, when I call you to operate in my grace, you're going to need perseverance, because it's going to be tested. Because that's not going to come naturally to you, to me. Man, forgiving people that owe me, that's not something that I feel great about all the time, especially when I've been on the receiving end of the hurt or the debt, or I've been paying hey, you lazy, I've been paying your way here. Come on. Man, the feelings to move towards justice are so easy to do. So we need perseverance, but focused on the right end.
Can I add a word to that perseverance? Just sanctification. Because while justification costs me nothing, sanctification will cost me everything. That's picking up my cross and following Him. And it doesn't make for my salvation. I'm not earning my salvation through sanctification. I'm simply turning towards another and saying, because He forgave me, I forgive you. Because He loves me, I love you. Because He went to a cross for me, I'm going to go to a cross for you. And in the places where you need me to die, I will. It doesn't mean there's no truth in the relationship, but it allows for truth. There's something about someone who's willing to die for you. The question of whether or not they love you has been answered. That's what happens in marriage. I know my wife would do anything for me. She would die for me. And so she's allowed to tell me all the truth she wants to tell me, because I know it comes from a place of love. And that's what Jesus, I love you now, right? Okay, I'm going to tell you the truth. What you just did back there, unacceptable. You're going to have to pick up your cross and follow me.
When you're younger, that's just a word. Those are fighting words. You just told me my behavior. You're not my mother. My behavior is not acceptable. Just boom. Right? You know what maturity in the Christian life looks like? Is the reaction time is shorter. Not towards exploding, but towards grace and mercy. That's what maturity looks like in a Christian life. Hey, the reaction time, man, I would have just come right off the handle years ago. But now I'm going to respond in grace and mercy because I've learned. That's sanctification that he's describing. It's maturity. And it's the difference. The worship team can come up and we're going to finish this morning. And as we get ready to take the elements of communion, I'd like you just to take a moment and just pause and just take a second before the Lord and just where you are as an individual here this morning. And God, if 20% of a culture in the Congo could receive a message of forgiveness, I wonder what effect that would have on a nation if it was really walked out. What effect would my one decision to forgive or to extend grace, what effect would that have in my relationship, my marriage, my family? What might change if I was to just simply obey you in that thing? In responding to someone who loves me, instead of responding in stubbornness, I'd respond in grace. I'd respond in humility. God, what could you do with that in our hands and in your hands? What could you do with that? Just take a couple seconds before you get up, and then when you feel ready, you can. The elements are all around the room. If you're visiting, you're welcome to partake with us if you're a believer. And if not, no worries, just stay where you are. But we'll come back together when everyone's served, and we'll take together.